Want more stories in your life without adding to your TBR? That's where Audible comes in. I use it for the original novellas, the Plus catalog like Deanna Rayburn's Veronica Speedwell series, and those audiobook sales that you can beat. Right now, Audible has a special offer for new and returning members. Click the link in the show notes to see what deal you'll get and start listening today. Hi, Jenny. Welcome to the What's Your Next podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to talk about these books today.
I am so excited to chat with you. As I was telling you before, one of my favorite new to me genres that I've been like deep dive and I'm passionate as a super reader is this mystery rom-com, mystery romance space. Yes. That it's not romantic suspense, it's not thrillers, it's not too gory, but there's a little bit of murder and there's a mystery and there's a little bit of Agatha Christie, but there's a romance aspect of it, and you do so well. So I'm very excited to chat with you.
Thank you. I accept the compliment.
Yes. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So this is my sixth book. Cross Your Heart and Hope He Dies is my sixth book that comes out January 20th, 2026. And I wrote several YAs before. I wrote a lot of historical action adventure that had a little bit of romance, but was more about the world possibly ending. And I got to a point in my career where, I had written these YAs. I was really happy with them, but I was also kind of looking at, okay, what's next? What's on board for me? And I really thought, what are all my favorite things? I love mystery. I love romance. I've been a big romance reader since I was like 12 and accidentally found a historical romance.
Yes.
That was about King Louis XIV. And I was like, this sounds interesting. And then it got real steamy real fast. Yeah. And so I love romance, I love mystery, and it's the kind of genre that it feels like I think the best kind of books feel like something that you've already seen or already read or already heard. And so as soon as these ideas of these mystery rom-coms came to me, I was like, yeah, this feels like a movie that I've already seen and I loved and I want more of it. And so I'm really excited that I got to make these books. I'm excited that I'm hearing from more authors that they're going to be coming out, because I do think look, I love a good mystery. I love a good romance. I'm like Joey Tribbiani. Put your hands together, my friends.
So we got to start about, most of our listeners are familiar with romance because we've been talking about romance for almost 10 years. But mystery is pretty much not a new genre. It's been around for a long time.
Right.
But for our listeners, they may not know what mystery is, how different it is from what they assume is a thriller, domestic suspense, psychological thriller. Mysteries. Talk to us about the mystery aspect of it from your perspective, because your books are not obviously there's a mystery, there's a murder of some sort, there's a chase, there's a puzzle that you're trying to solve, and it's not as gory. Although it can be gory, but it's not as gory as a major trigger warning.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great question too, because a lot of people who have not read mystery before don't realize that mystery, a lot like romance, is a very robust genre. And there are lots of subcategories to it in the same way that romance can have historical or contemporary or a rom-com or romantasy now is very popular. Mystery is the same way. You can have cozy mystery, which is sort of more the style of story that my books are, which are, yes, there's been a murder and yes, there's some danger, but it's not psychological. It's not thriller. It's not gory, like you said. There's thrillers, which are like it feels like every page there's a new twist. The stakes are high and they're often dealing with sort of dark topics in a way that other mysteries don't. There are more noir type mysteries, which I love. There's the classic, what they call the golden age, which is where Agatha Christie comes from. You have your Dashiell Hammetts. You have, I'm blanking on any other classic names.
Dorothy Sayers, I think, is another.
Yes, yeah, and I think P.C. Cass was one of them. And so there's all of these great subgenres that you can tell a story in. What I really liked about, and I will not take credit for this, but it was an inspiration for me. There's been this sort of new movement in mystery within the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years of generally cozy mysteries have very specific rules. And they're usually set in one location. They're about a quirky cast of characters. You have your detective, like your Agatha Raisins, who come into a community or a part of a community and they're a little bit smarter than everybody else and they're a little bit ahead of the game and they're kind of solving these mysteries. And honestly, Agatha Christie, even though she's classic, her kind of storytelling would fit into that cozy genre. Cozies 10 years ago it was usually like retired women, like in their 60s, 70s, sometimes 80s, in English villages who are solving crimes with all these other retired people. And they really felt like they were in the domain of a certain age and a certain type of reader. And then all of a sudden we got this wave of what I've been hearing called millennial cozies, which are the same things. There's this cute town. It's almost like a small town romance, but instead of romance, there's a murder, where you have these cute towns and these sort of plucky, interesting heroines, and there's a murder and they've got to solve it. And so you've got your Finley Donovan series, which has been really popular in that space. Mia P. Manansala, who did Arsenic and Adobo, fantastic series. One of my favorites is Gigi Pandian writes her Under Skeleton Lock and Key series, the Secret Staircase series. And there are these young women who are in careers, who have goals in life, and there might be a romance involved. And all of a sudden they are in this space and it feels fresh and new because it's a new kind of main character who's solving these cases. And then it can be a little unsure. A lot of them, especially like from my first book, She Doesn't Have a Clue. Kate Valentine is such a mess. And it was such a joy to write somebody who could be messy and really bad at it. And then in my new book, Cross Your Heart and Hope He Dies, Juliet Winters is hardcore. She believes that she'd be really good at this. I'm good at everything. And so when she's maybe not, that's a fun little rude awakening for her.
Yes. And I think those millennial clusters also take place in bigger cities. Adobe Nursery is set out of Chicago. I think Finley Anonymous in Virginia, like they're major cities. So it's not like this idea of isolated small town that we just don't exist. Like the Hannah Swensons might be like in this like this place, but these are actually like Chicago. There's Portland. There's like New York. Like places you wouldn't think of a cozy mystery. But you know what? There's a lot of murders that happen.
That's usually where the murders are, to be fair.
Yeah. But the one thing I don't like about these cozy, not this, I really the lady of millennial mysteries is that you don't care about the killer. Like you're not really worried about it. Your main driving force is the amateur sleuth trying to figure out how to make sense of the world and make sense of things, and the character arc and personal growth from that space, as opposed to be like, who murdered this person and try to catch it. It's someone down the street who may have done it and solve the problem, may solve the puzzle, but it's not the whole driver of the book.
Yeah. That they feel like your friend and you're trying to sort of solve it along with them. Hey, let me help you out. Can I sit in the car with you on this stakeout while you try to figure out if this guy is cheating on his girlfriend or whatever?
Yeah.
And in a way that I think a lot of previous detective stories, even cozy mysteries, the detective always felt a little bit removed because they were smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
Miss Marple saw things that nobody else saw. Poirot is obnoxious, but nothing gets by him. You've got these characters who are really, really good at what they do. And we like that. We like watching experts do their job. But I really like in this millennial cozy space that it's no, these are women who have jobs and careers and lives, and they're trying to get their stuff together. And murder just keeps happening very inconveniently around them.
Yeah. Let's talk about your series because it does follow, it's a little bit unconventional because it follows two different main characters, which is a little bit different when we think about one morning series. I think Mia Mansalas follows different characters in the story, but this one is very, I was expecting it to come back.
Right.
Back. And then I was like, wait, it's a whole new character.
Yes.
Because this is unconventional for someone who is a long running series. Finley Donovan is Finley Donovan the whole way through. The Catherine Mack is Eleanor Dash the whole way through.
Right.
So talks about the decision of having a different sleuth, a different character, a different romance, a different space. Does it feel like a standalone even though it serves in the same world as a publishing company and all the aspects of the publishing company we learned in book one? What was the decision to decide to move away from the first character to have it standalone?
Yeah. So the first book, She Doesn't Have a Clue, follows Kate Valentine, who is a best-selling author who has been sort of roped into going to her ex-fiance slash current editor's weekend wedding. And then she gets accused of poisoning the bride when she's found with the body. And so it does take place in this world, this publishing world of Simon Says is the publishing company. It's set in Seattle. They're small, one of the last gasps of independent publishing. And so it's this great Pacific Northwest. It's an it happens on an island. It's very much like this remote Victorian manor out on an island in the middle of the ocean. Like no one is escaping until we find this killer. And then book 2 follows Juliet Winters, who is her marketing manager at Simon Says. And we learn in book 1 that Simon Says is really struggling financially. And in book 2, they're really on the brink of collapse. And Juliet has engineered this book deal that's like the deal is this really juicy tell-all memoir from this local business guy who has created this exclusive country club. And so his memoir sort of promises to tell all of the secrets of the elite in his country club. Unfortunately for Juliet, he drops over from a heart attack and the manuscript goes missing on the day of the book announcement. So now she's got to track down this missing manuscript, convince the police that the circumstances of his death were not so natural or innocent. And she's got to try to save both her job and her publishing company in the same space. So they're set in the same world. There's a lot of overlap. Kate Valentine from book 1 makes a big reappearance in book 2. Juliet is in book 1. But I really, because these books are meant to be a true mashup of murder mystery and rom-coms, I really took inspiration from the way that romance books handle multiple characters in a series. And what they usually do is each book focuses on a different couple. So it might be like 3 brothers and each book is about a different brother, or it might be like 5 girls who are in a band together and each band member gets a series. And what I really love about that and what I liked doing here too was that it gives you the opportunity to explore a whole new a whole new character arc, you can look at the story from a different perspective. Juliet Winters is a very different character from Kate Valentine. They're complementary, but they're very different. And so I really got to play around with very different dialogue. I got to put her in different circumstances than Kate was able to go into. It really felt like I got to play in the same world, and we get to see all of our favorite characters from the last book, but I got to tell a new story. So anybody coming to this series can come in at any point. I like to speak of them as standalone companion novels.
Yeah.
So you can read Cross Your Heart first and be totally fine. You can read She Doesn't Have a Clue and then immediately know who everybody is when you go into Cross Your Heart. And so that was kind of the goal there, was to be able to follow a different romantic couple, be able to tell a standalone mystery, but also to be able to get to see all of our favorite characters. So it felt like I got to do the best of both worlds from mystery and romance by being able to approach it that way.
Yeah, I think yours are the perfect companion if you're a romance reader who wants to dive into the mystery aspect
Yes.
of it, who just doesn't want to deal with romantic thrillers or romantic suspense and just wants something fun. This is like the perfect companion. It's more romance driven in some ways than the mystery driven. And I think it's a great place to get started. Which for my listeners, hello, this is the perfect place to get started. As opposed to trying with Finley Donovan, that the romance is built upon time and the mystery is much more forward.
Yes.
To stop. So yes. So just how to market.
Yeah. And I like to tell people, whatever kind of reader you are, there's plenty of that and more. So if you are primarily a romance reader and you're looking for something a little plottier, something a little more story driven, these books will give you plenty of romance while also still giving you that plot. If you're a mystery forward reader, but you're looking for, if you want some more of that human connection, you want a little bit of spice, but you're not ready to dive fully into the deep end of dark romance, these are great books for you. So it really, I feel like whatever you like, this will it'll scratch that itch, but then also give you a little bit more to help kind of introduce you to other genres that you might not be with.
I was to say, She Doesn't Have a Clue has a great like ending, like a massive solve the show with a wild animal running on it. It's like, it's the perfect locked door room mystery that you're like, okay, everyone's gonna be okay. I don't know, but we're just gonna have a massive Go on with the bang.
And I feel like I have a very similar let's go out with a bang ending for she doesn't have for cross your heart and hope he dies. I feel like anyone who has read any of my young adult novels knows that I usually go for broke at some point in all of my stories.
Yeah, so they're delightful. So for listeners, make sure to pick up She Doesn't Have a Clue and hope, cross your heart, hope he dies as your next books to pick up. So Jenny, tell us what kind of books you tend to read.
So I've become a big nonfiction reader. And I don't know if it's just an age thing or I spend so much time working on fiction that it's a nice palate cleanser. But I really love to read well done nonfiction. And like Mary Roach is one of my favorite nonfiction authors. She wrote one of my favorite books called Stiff, The Curious Life of the Human Cadaver. And it's all about how bodies that have been donated for science get used in all these different ways. But which sounds so, I know it sounds like very morbid, but it kind of is if you're into that. But also, she's such a fantastic writer. She writes, she's just having a conversation with you. She's really warm, she's funny. And it feels like I'm reading fiction, but I'm learning something at the same time. And I love that approach. So that's a lot of what I read now. And then if I read fiction, a lot of it is horror. I really love horror. Cannot watch horror films. Cannot do it. Cannot do the jump scares. Cannot do that. But I feel like horror novels are really good at questioning what makes us human and what happens when we test that humanity or when someone else challenges that humanity. And I think that it's such a refreshing genre because you really do not ever know where it's going to go. You don't know how things are going to end. Nobody is safe. And sometimes the endings really leave you feeling really unsettled, which is the best kind of book. It's such a good book. So that's primarily what I read these days.
All right. So in nonfiction, do you have any specific rabbit hole that you have gone down? You're like, oh my God, if I see it, I buy it, I listen, I do it, I just go down. For me, it's pop culture, any type of millennial pop culture related from malls to TV shows, oral histories, anything. I see it, I dive into it, I loved it. As someone who's nonfiction is my new go-to genre. What's your rabbit hole for you?
Ooh, I like that question. I love to read anything about big discoveries of any kind, especially anything that talks about sort of turning points in history, but specifically around like sciences. And I love reading like archaeological nonfiction about discovery. I read it as research for one of my YA books, but ended up reading it for fun. But I read Howard Carter, who discovered the tomb of King Tutankhamun. He wrote like a 3-book series. And so I read them as research because I had a series on archaeological action adventure. But I read it because his tone was so great and he was kind of a little bit catty about whatever. To be fair, he was really advanced for his time. He was ahead of what everyone was doing. And he came into archaeology at a time where most everyone was sort of like doing cowboy archaeology, where it was just rich British guys going in and dynamiting things and taking all the gold for themselves. Like it was really kind of the Wild West. And he came in and really applied a lot of scientific procedure to the archaeological discovery. And a lot of what he introduced, we still use in the archaeological field today. And so he was rightfully so, but he's very condescending about like everyone else and anyone else's discoveries and how much better and smarter he was. And it was very funny to read at the time. But yeah, I love that. There's a book that I just finished a while ago called The Poisoner's Handbook, which is all about the creation of the forensic unit, like detective unit in the New York coroner's office, which happened during Prohibition. And so and it's told in these vignettes of here's this type of poison and here's how they developed the test for finding it. And here's the case that it was tied to. And here's how these guys pioneered these scientific methods. Another one that's really well done. It feels like fiction. You lose yourself in it and you're like, wait, this really happened. Like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy that people are just going around poisoning people all the time, but they were. So I think any kind of genre like that, where it's, oh, here's how we discovered how, like the Radium Girls, here's how we discovered that radium was actually really bad for us. Or here's how we discovered the tomb of a lost pharaoh. Anytime I see something like that, where it's here was a big discovery that nobody's talking about, then I will definitely read that.
I love this. And I can tell like poison can come as a very useful tool for future books. Poison
I
is
feel
well
like
used in the cozy mystery. Everyone gets
if anyone I know ever gets poisoned, I'm in so much trouble.
it is so good. So in terms I know you had some book recommendations to share with our listeners that are fiction. So talk to a couple of those book recommendations.
So I did do both fiction and nonfiction. I did one nonfiction because I just finished this nonfiction book. It's called The Art Thief. And
Yes.
it is about the most prolific art thief in history. And it is such a mind boggling story of how much he stole and how long he stole and how he stole the things. I mean, he would walk into museums in broad daylight and snatch things off of displays and then walk out. Like this was not a smash and grab. And then he kept them. He kept every single piece of art he stole. He wasn't stealing for profit. He wasn't stealing to fence it. He wasn't part of the black market. He just stole things for his own entertainment. And it is such a wild, really well done story. And then the story of the author who wrote it is also very interesting and colors a lot of your experience of reading it afterward. It's one of those books that I'm now like, I'm throwing it at everyone because I read it in like a day and it hijacked my brain. It was so crazy. One of those things where it's like, there's no way this happened. There's no way this is not fiction, but it totally happened. It's such a crazy story. Some of my favorite fiction books that I've read recently, and this is another one that I like throw at every woman that I know. It's called The Change. I think it's Kristen Miller. And I'm not usually a book club reader, but this was a Good Morning America book club title. And I read the pitch for it and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Let me try it out. I was hooked by the first page. The voice is fantastic. It's about these three women going through menopause who develop powers that then decide to use those powers to help solve this case of these girls who've gone missing in their sort of upscale vacation town. And so it's the perfect story for like women, for feminine rage, for the stories of how women get sidelined and how our bodies are talked about when they start to change. The voice is just so easy and quick to read, and it's funny in a lot of places. And it really kept me going through the whole book. I thought it was just really, really interesting and a really good one to talk about with other people. And I was like, okay, this is a perfect book club book. Like, this is the kind of book that as soon as you finish, you're like, I need to talk to someone about this. I need someone else to know what's happening here.
That's your book club choice. I was like,
Yes. Yes, it is. I was like, you know what? That is spot on. I will give you future chances, Good Morning America Book Club, because that was a solid pick. I also recommended Witch of Wild Things, which is Raquel Vasquez Gilliland, who's one of my good friends. And it is perfect book for this season. It's autumn perfection. It's three sisters who are witches, who each have their own powers. And it's the story of how they navigate love and familial stress and the life that they're living. And Raquel is also a poet. The writing is just next level, just beautiful. I mean, there are sentences and lines in there that you just sit back and have to take a breath because they're so truthful and they're so well done. And she has a line in that book about sometimes she's talking about seeds because the main character in Witch of Wild Things has the power to command plants. And so she's connected with plants, she's connected with seeds and gardening. And she has this great line about how seeds, in order to grow, they have to break their pods. And she says, in order for things to grow, sometimes they have to break first. And that's such an incredible, I say that to people all the time because it's such a beautiful, incredible sentiment that, yeah, sometimes things have to break before they can grow. And it's a great romance, great, like steamy scenes, just fantastic writing, perfect for this season. And then I had a couple of recommendations because, of course, we're talking murder mysteries here. I can't get out of here without recommending some mysteries. So some really interesting mysteries that I've read lately were the Magpie Murders and Under Lock and Skeleton Key, which is the Secret Staircase series by Gigi Pandian. And both of these, I think, do such a great job of telling what feels like a standard murder mystery, but then bringing in these incredible elements that really make it feel fresh and new. So Magpie Murders is like a mystery turducken because it's this mystery author who has written a book and sent it to his editor, and then he dies without sending the last chapter. So then his editor has to go and try and find this chapter. And as she's doing that, she realizes, oh, maybe something more is going on here. Maybe he didn't just fall off of this building or jump off as they thought he did. I think there's a bigger conspiracy going on here. And so it's interspersed with scenes from the book itself and then scenes from the editor trying to solve his murder. And so you're really like reading two mysteries side by side, but they inform each other and they interact with each other. And it starts to kind of blur the lines between reality and fiction, and then fiction within fiction. And then Gigi does the same thing in her Secret Staircase series. She tells these really great Agatha Christie style murder mysteries, but then there's this element of this family creates illusions. So the main character is a stage magician in her former life. And so she works for her family, making these sort of constructing these illusions as part of people's houses and homes and things like that. So in every single scene or every single murder, nothing is ever as it seems, right? There are illusions and there are stage tricks and there are ways that you have to kind of figure out what's real and what's not. And I just love when murder mysteries, because if you think about it, the idea of murder is such a fever dream. Most of us have never encountered this. We've certainly never solved a murder. And so when we're reading about these scenarios, I think it's really interesting when people will play with the idea that, like, yeah, this sort of sucks you into a different world and everybody else is out there like going to jobs and getting dinner and putting their kids to bed. And you're over here like tracking down a killer. That's really surreal. And so when they start to play with your sense of reality, I think books like that they're so interesting. They're so well done. And they really do just kind of jolt you out of reality and make you think, man, what could be going on around me that I'm not even aware of?
I know. It's like you can solve a mystery. You can solve a murder at any time. So, Jenny, tell us where you can find you online.
So you can find me on my website is jennyeldermoke.com. It's just my name.com. I'm also mainly on Instagram at jennyeldermoke, although I'm not much of a social media person. So if you don't see me post for several weeks, no, you didn't. And I also have a newsletter that I send out once a quarter that you can sign up for through my website. And it's just book news. I often answer questions that I get from other writers, potential authors, things like that, where they just kind of want to understand more about the craft or the industry or about my journey and how I came to where I am today. And so I try to make it low stress, try to give you as much helpful information as possible. I know we all get more emails than we ever need in our lives, but if that's something that interests your readers, your listeners, they are welcome to sign up. I would love to have them on the list.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny, for a delightful conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me too. This is such a fun topic to talk about.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there. Are you an author, publisher, or book-related business looking to reach passionate readers? What to Read Next podcast is a perfect place to connect with an engaged audience of romance and mystery lovers who are always on the hunt for their next great read. Now, we're offering sponsorship opportunities. Whether you're launching a new book, promoting an upcoming release, showcasing a bookish product or services, we can help you get the word out. Let's work together to bring your books or businesses to readers who are ready to discover something new. Please visit whattoreadnextblog.com/sponsorships to learn more or reach out to chat about the perfect sponsorship or package for you. Thank you much for listening. Your next great reader is waiting for you.